Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to have a very fun session. You're here to see gaining business value from IoT. All right. So I love stories, and I've got to tell you my favorite IoT story. It's about my mother-in-law. She's a 4'9", beautiful little Dominican, smart, great cook. Oh, she's amazing. Great to me and my boys. We just love her to death. And I got a voicemail from her right after the holidays, well, about a month ago. And all I heard, what I understood was her English is a little broken she's been here since the 60s. She does a pretty good job of it. Necesito, mijo, refrigerador nuevo pronto, which means I need a new refrigerator, quickly. So, all right. So she's got to be asking me, because I'm the tech guy. I'm the one that makes sure she has a tablet and a computer and a cell phone and apps and everything. So I immediately go in the research, and I'm looking IoT, refrigerators, all kinds of cool stuff. It's going to check her food out for spoilage and replenishment, and I was so excited to be able to talk to her. And I called her on the weekend when I had time, and I just barreled into it. You know, Tita, it's going to be great. You're going to love this thing. You're going to have to shop, and it's monitoring this and doing that. And when I finally got done, she said, no, mijo. I need it for floods. Floods? What is it? And she used it in Spanish, a lifeboat. Well, she'd been watching Univision for all the floods have been going on, and people have been using those boats, using their refrigerators to get out of their homes when they were flooded. So, you know, I found her a big, heavy, nice refrigerator boat, and then, of course, dropped a little beacon in there in case she ever has to use it as a boat. But that was a great IoT example of where we're going. So, Internet of Things, IoT. Great acronym. It's going to change everything. It is changing everything, and it's driving a lot what's happening in cloud. It's driving certainly big data and big data analytics. All these advances are starting to drive the cloud management providers to come in, and we're starting to see more multi-cloud and the multi-cloud management capabilities. So you've got big data, you've got cloud, you've got multi-clouds, all of that coming together to drive a big industry trend around IoT. So what we're going to talk about today is the business value of IoT and the trends and things that are happening around IoT, but also weave in big data and cloud as necessary. I'm Brent Brightwell. I'm with Doublehorn. I'm a product manager, product leader at Doublehorn, working on our strategy and go-to-market. We're very thankful to have this event and for you guys to be here. I'm going to let Chandra from Rackspace introduce himself, and then we'll let Joanne do the same.
Thanks, Brent. My name is Chandra Salem, and I'm a chief technologist and a principal big data architect with Rackspace. I've been working in the big data field ever since big data was a concept way back in 2007 and 2008. Seen companies evolve from a fairly a technology which was very rough around the edges to what is today pretty mature, almost ready for prime time with the most rigorous and the most demanding enterprises. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Right. And Joanne, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to walk a little bit while I'm presenting, because I'm going to actually talk about a real live example of IoT, and it's not a consumer example, it's an industrial example. And it's our example. It's the company that I represent is Jabil. And I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Jabil, and I'm also the General Manager of what we know as the Blue Sky Innovation Center. We have tons of scientists and PhDs and mechanical engineers and electronic engineers, plastics people, you name it, and they're all residing in our center in Silicon Valley. And what we do is we are a manufacturing solutions provider. So what does that mean? What that means in your terms is, think about IoT or IT outsourcing, right? We are the outsourcing and consulting services arm for the manufacturing world. We're a 180,000 person organization. We're $18 billion, and we service 250 of the world's biggest brands. So the big brands that you buy products from are actually having them designed and built and shipped by us. And a lot of times configured and personalized, because now everything's personalized. And we started our IoT journey about 3 years ago. And there's some major elements that we've already, and we call IoT and the combination of IoT, cloud, and big data, we call that digital, right? We're digitizing ourselves. We're digitizing our processes. We've digitized our whole ideation to prototyping, for example. We call that digital prototyping. And we have a digital prototyping lab at Blue Sky. And the digital prototyping lab, you could literally be an innovator, an inventor, and come in with an idea in your head at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can have an industrial design by 12 noon, and you can have a prototype in your hand by 4 o'clock in the afternoon before you leave. We call that accelerated innovation. And we are the birthplace of where all these IoT connected devices come from. This Blue Sky Center is where people come up with these ideas, and then others come in and say, well, I've been building a toaster for 50 years. I want to connect that toaster to the Internet of Things. So we help them do that.
Is that a real example?
It's a real example. It's a real example. The cool thing is that we can deliver a whole product integrated and ready for the IoT. So I'll give you a perfect example. We have a large consumer brand that came in and said, you know, we want to build this water bottle, and we want to have sensors on it, and we want it to distribute sodium and electrolytes and things like that when the body's nutrients and fluid levels are down, right? So it's a very athletic, and I can't name some names. I'll name names when I can, and there's other names I can't. And we looked at this, you know, invention of theirs, and it was $150 to make. So the first thing we did was we had to bring that down to a price point where it's manufacturable and actually marketable, because they can't sell a water bottle for $150. So that's where all the industrial design work comes in, and we really get that thing to something meaningful. But the cool thing is we could do the whole bottle. We do the plastics, we do the caps and the lids, we do the sensors, and we even can do the pods, because we do pods for Keurig and Espresso. We make those as well. So we are a very broad, you know, sort of spectrum of manufacturing services. But what we believe is that today you need to manufacture at the speed of digital, because life is at the speed of digital, right? And everything is changing. Business is not the same anymore. Paul talked about that in his session, right? The cloud, IoT, big data, all that stuff is raising consumer expectations through the roof, right? Like for instance, this morning I was debating, do I drive from Dallas to Austin? It was about 1 in the morning, I just finished work. Do I drive or do I catch a flight, right? I decided I was gonna catch a flight because I would be too tired to drive, and I don't like the 35, you know, on a rainy day like today. Boom, pulled out my phone, went on my American Airlines app, booked a flight, got there, got on the flight, got off, and here I am, right? Instant gratification is what's going on with consumers, especially young consumers. So those technologies are changing the way people behave, and Paul talked about that. The other thing that these technology trends are doing is they're lowering the barrier for entry for new companies and new business models. And those new companies and new business models are disrupting fast and furious. And again, it's the predator or the prey. It's the be disrupted or be the disruptor, right? Which one are you going to be? So all these things, these technologies that you guys as IT professionals are trying to grapple with are changing the world really, really fast. And the point of this slide is you got to move fast. Because what my customers are telling me when they come into Blue Sky is, I'm not so worried about a product launch going wrong anymore. I'm not so worried about failing. I'm worried about becoming irrelevant because the world is moving so fast, right? So that's the fear now. And we believe in this fast world, you need to do rapid innovation, right? You need a lot of partners, like we talked about earlier. It's an ecosystem. No one can skin this cat by themselves. You need a Cisco in there. You need an Amazon in there. You need if you're a product company, you might want a Jabil in there. You need people to help you with this and people you trust, right? And then speed. Everything's about speed, as I mentioned already. So real quick, our vision, we want to become the world's most renowned, most trusted manufacturing solutions partner. How are we doing that? So now I'm going to tell you the story about how we're doing it for ourselves. So not only do we make companies' products digital, we are becoming digital. So how are we doing that? We are, as I mentioned, digitizing everything. And it's not just marketing, guys. If you're just digitizing marketing, you are in big trouble if the rest of the organization is not digitizing with you. Connective tissue like processes and data and connectivity has to be put through the whole organization, or else you will spoil the customer expectation at the end of the day. So if your ERP system is old and you just put in a brand new marketing automation system and it's flashing all that stuff, but your ERP is old, you know, or your supply chain system is old, or all your back end, it's not going to work. Everything in that value chain, until you deliver that value to the customer, has to be in sync. Everybody has to be part of this digital revolution or not. It's not going to work. You can't be half pregnant, right? So that's what we're trying to do, and we're digitizing the entire, you know, supply chain, the entire value chain rather. So you can send us a CAD drawing, we can start iterating with you, we can do everything digitally, right? So we do digital prototyping. Our factories have we have 101 plants all over the world. We're 180,000 people. 2 of our biggest plants, right, are completely digital. We have sensors on our automation robots, right? We're sensing and sending that data back up into a cloud, and we're using predictive analytics, right, and different tools to analyze and see what's going to grab us, what's going to hurt us, what's going to stop that production line, right? And since we've implemented that, and we did that with Azure, we did that with Microsoft, we put in a bunch of Microsoft tools and a bunch of other tools to give us this capability in 2 of our biggest plants, where there's probably 100,000 people across both, in Guadalajara and Penang. And we can watch those machines, and we can make sure that they're up and running and functional, and they're not creating product defects. Because if your machinery, your tools are creating product defects, your Dell customer, your HP customer, your EMC customer, your, you know, whoever is going to pick up that phone and call me, and I will not hear the end of it. We cannot miss delivery cycles. Paul, you know that from being at Dell. We got to ship product, right? And they're depending on us, and they're depending on us to ship quality product. So we are a living, breathing example of digitization. In fact, Satya Nadella, and I'll get to that part real quick. I'm not going to get into our business. I'll share this with you, but our solutions go across the product lifecycle. I'll share this presentation with you. The other thing I wanted to mention is we work across the entire digital IoT ecosystem. So we build solutions, design, build, and supply chain manage solutions for all of these companies across this whole thing, from device, smartphones, networking and telecommunications equipment, right up to the cloud, right? Those are our customers. So we are part of a digital ecosystem and enabling it, and we're enabling ourselves with all these people as well, all right? So Satya talked about us at Hanover Mesa. He held us up on stage as an example and said, these guys are doing it right. They've got predictive analytics all across their factory floors, and they're really sensing the data. And there's way more that we want to do there. We want machines talking to machines. We want to create the fog where there's even higher levels of productivity and less failure rate when the machines start to talk to one another. So there's way more we want to do with Microsoft and the Azure platform and our other partners. This week, 2 days ago, Gartner said we had the best digital supply chain on the planet. We're managing 17,000 suppliers. We're managing 700,000 parts a day. We have 180,000 people touching our supply chain. And 3 years ago, we took the initiative to digitize the whole thing. We know at any given moment in real time where every single part is. If there's a hurricane in some part of the world, some catastrophic weather event, we can see within seconds, within a 500-mile radius, which suppliers is that going to affect and whose products am I going to be late shipping, or helps me reconfigure my whole supply chain and optimize it. So from design to prototyping to factory floor to the supply chain, we're digital. We're IoT enabled, and we're big data, very big data, dependent, right? So this is a real example. What has this done for us so far? $300 million of savings since we went production. We have 150 of our customers, of our 250, loaded into our new supply chain. So $300 million in savings and risk avoidance, and 20% improvement in customer service levels. So we're really excited about the recognition. We're really excited about these two things happening, within the span of a month. And we are the real deal. We are a digital manufacturer, and we will manufacture at the speed of digital for our customers. Because when consumers want something and they want it right there and then, we're going to be there for our customers to deliver it. Okay? And these are the guys that make it happen. That's our CIO. We could not do this without our CIO. This guy is a rock star. He's an ex-Bank of America guy, came in, worked hand in hand with the business, because that collaboration is a must, and he's our chief supply chain officer. These are our advanced logistics guys, and this fellow over here is a big data analytics guy. And Christine's my digital marketing person, because she needs to wrap this all together and present it back to the world from a digital marketing perspective. So it's a real partnership at Jabil. Now, I used up a little bit more time. Do you want me to do the video or no?
I think the video would be a good one to show good.
In the age of IoT, Factory of the Future manufacturing demands unprecedented visibility into supply chain, like predictive and actionable analytics to prevent interruption, agile, responsive decision-making to accelerate go-to-market, maximizing global resources for optimum landed cost. In short, more gain and less risk. Massive market disruptions, emerging technologies, and fluidly changing business models are fueling greater supply chain complexity. Research shows companies are feeling the challenge. In a recent survey, 80% of electronics OEMs agreed they would launch new products more often if their processes supported faster, cheaper delivery. And half of all respondents report abandoning ideas altogether due to price or procurement complexities. Today, it's not enough to manage supply chain. You've got to master it end to end. Within Control, our intelligent digital supply chain solution, Jabil helps customers customize and synchronize diverse global manufacturing processes. Through our innovative proprietary supply chain software, we enable customers to visualize and optimize the value chain, end to end and in real time. Everything from designing, prototyping, and scaling, to syncing suppliers, partners, and channels, and managing material and manufacturing every step of the way, from sourcing to post-sale support.
First is all around supply chain complexity and the simplification of supply chain. Making that supply chain as robust, making that supply chain as accelerated as possible so they can get product to their end customers as quickly as possible.
What's the ultimate benefit of supply chain optimization? Market-relevant products with accelerated life cycles, differentiated by innovation, from idea to distribution. Through the power of intelligent digital supply chain, which is Jabil's In Control solution, we're helping customers optimize their go-to-market strategies for speed, agility, and large-scale volume, allowing them to focus on their core value sets while we streamline the business of production, ensuring they not only deliver innovative solutions to their customers, but in the process gain efficiencies and virtually eliminate risk, freeing them to compete and excel, to lead in their space and disrupt.
In the restaurant. And so all this stuff unfolded, and they're realizing XX dollars per guest per day more. I mean, it's phenomenal. So it's added to the customer experience because the customer can quickly get what they need. It's also added to the revenue. Now, what that's happened is it's fanning out through Disney now. Now they want to create this whole internet of Disney, because Disney has retail outlets, they have cruise ships, they have video and online gaming, and the whole neat thing that's going on is it's bringing this corporation together, right? And big data is tying it together so that they can then leverage and cross-sell and upsell. So what we're seeing is the consumer stuff is okay, and it's generally something, it's personal. In other words, I want to see my fitness tracker, I want to see how many steps I took, I want to see how much I slept. That's my private information. But the other phenomena is this guest experience, fan experience, big stadiums, big venues, hotels, right, from a consumer perspective. And then the other opportunity that we see is healthcare, which we talked about this morning, and manufacturing is just phenomenal. It is just incredible. It's turning manufacturing companies into software companies, basically. So,
Yeah, some of the stats you put up, the millions and millions. So the research shows that it can't be a nice panel without stats, right?
yeah.
As IoT grows, volume of data. So we're going to generate by 2019 507 zettabytes.
Yeah.
Zettabyte is a trillion gigabytes. So it's a lot of DeLoreans we can send back to 1985 on that. So it's a lot of information. Chandra, tell us what you're seeing out there. What's going on with big data in regards to IoT?
So when you look at big data, right, big data was originally a problem. The definition was, the 3 V's, volume, velocity, and variety. What makes IoT a very special case of big data really is the, is the perimeter. There is no perimeter. When you talk about sensors and devices, the world is really, in fact, if, NASA, I'm sure, has a lot of sensors in space. So the universe is really the perimeter. You cannot put a fence around it. So when you look at the traditional big data, when you look at what an enterprise big data is, you can authenticate using your systems, you can control the security, you know who's accessing these systems at what times. And if, let's say, you have an intruder that's hitting your big data platform, you can always alert somebody or actually, pop up a screen. This way, the human being, the user, is not going to get into the system. With devices, on the other hand, some of them are basically passive sensors. They're critical. You still need to communicate, but you can't tell them, oops, you're not supposed to be in here. So the paradigms and the problems are the same, but we are actually looking at 10 to 15x more data with IoT than you would with the traditional big data type environment.
That's incredible.
Wow.
So what are some of the challenges you're seeing at Jabil? Is it around, you talked about the analytics y'all are doing, you're doing the infrastructure, you mentioned security.
Yeah.
What are some of those?
So, what we're seeing? We're seeing customers coming in. I know that example seems funny. Connect my water bottle, connect my toaster. We've connected washing machines and dryers and things like that. They don't know what to do with the data. And so that's the first question we get, is like, okay, you're helping us connect. We're at the birthplace of, IoT here where we're building this stuff. What do we do with this data? How do we best leverage it? How do we unlock the potential and unlock the power of this data? So people are still trying to figure that whole thing out. Now, some know, and they, I'm going to create services, and I'm going to put, we have one company that does lawn care, and they want to put sensors in the lawn so that when the lawn grows to a certain height, they're going to offer a service. It's a new business model for them. They're a product company. They want to become a service company. So when the grass grows to a certain height, or if there's too many dandelions being sensed or what have you, a serviceman will come out and provide a service to take care of your lawn. I know that sounds incredible, but that's what it's coming to, and it's helping change product companies to service-oriented companies. And of course, in a service-oriented business, margins are much higher, value is much higher. So that's what we're seeing. That's what's, what do we do with it? How do we make money off it? How do we monetize it? So what we're now figuring out is we've got to have a lot of data experts. Chandra, come and visit us at Blue Sky. We need data experts. We really, really do, but blended with business expertise. Not just data, but business. What are the business things you want to look for and then monetize?
Yeah. So there's the real-time aspect, because that's going to send off those alerts and monitoring. That's going to be streaming data consistently. You've got to collect it, and then you've got to analyze it, and then you've got to make some level of business decisions. So what are you seeing in regards to the analytics and how to be able to provide the actual insights, the business value?
Yeah, so this is actually one of, I would say, Brent, the hardest innovations in the world of IoT, right? So when you looked at the state of things with Internet of IoT 2 years ago, it was always unidirectional traffic. So you assume that the devices cannot be talked back to. They're going to emit data, be it sensors, be it your life alerts and your heartbeat monitors and things like that. But you never actually had a means or a protocol to actually write back to the device. But now one of my recent use cases at Rackspace that we have encountered, right, was oil rigs. So let's say you're running there is an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico, and you're mining data. So let's assume let's say that every 15 minutes you get the rig produces 15 barrels of oil. all of a sudden between 10:15 and 10:30, or between 10:15 and 10:16, the output has dropped to basically 0 barrels. So one of two things is happening. One, there is something wrong with the device itself and everything is fine. Network connectivity is broken. The other one, which is more catastrophic, is basically there is a leak. I mean, there is an oil leak, and this is something that requires immediate intervention. So what most of the cloud companies are doing is they have invented a brand new paradigm, which I think today we talk about B2B and B2C. There is a new concept called C to D, cloud to device and device to cloud, which is a bidirectional protocol. And as long as the devices are actually manufactured to take data from authenticated cloud providers and trusted cloud providers, you can send bidirectional signals, and if the need be, you can actually control the devices. So there are a whole new manufacturing standards. Amazon and some of the leading cloud providers, Azure, Amazon, they all basically recommend if you're actually providing a chip, for some device, it could even be a gas stop valve for your stove. If you want to use Internet of Type, if you want to emit data from this device to a central hub, you got to implement these standards so that we can actually shut it off when we need to. So it's definitely the worlds are coming together, real time versus bidirectional traffic.
That's
So
interesting.
let's take that case study, use Azure in your case with Jabil. So what are some of the challenges you're facing? Are you concerned about security? What are the things that are happening that you guys are having to address with your customers?
Yeah, security is a biggie. IP leak is a biggie. And we, not only do we have a really strong security policy from an information perspective, we have to have global physical security wrapped around all our plants, because if something walks out the door, one of these walks out the door before it's released, it's hell to pay. And you've seen in the news that's been happening, not from us, but it happens. So we take security very seriously. We have a global security officer, and we really look at, how do we protect the data? How do we protect the IP? How do we protect the people? So we have a 3-pronged security approach. And yeah, that data, like the security guy was involved from the get-go. You got to design it in. By design, you've got to put security into your whole IoT strategy, because that's where it'll kill you. And from a privacy perspective, if you're talking healthcare or education or anything like that, that has to be designed in from the get-go, right? And what we're seeing is what's really cool is we work with firewall companies, because we build a lot of firewalls that are out there on the market. So we're talking to firewall companies, and we're looking at, what can we build for a car or embed in a car that can give inbound sort of, intrusion prevention, threat detection, and then outbound encryption on any data that's going out of the car. Can we wrap a VPN around it or something like that? So we're really thinking about that, and we're bringing our partners in, both to help us think it through, but to help our customers think it through, right?
That streaming data that you're talking about, that live data that you have to secure, hosting it in the cloud, that's a lot of experience that at Rackspace you guys have. What do you see, and what are y'all doing for big data and hosting securely in the cloud?
So when it comes to Internet of Things, right, the security paradigms are very different from what most of us are used to seeing. When you talk about corporate or any type of, I would say static IT systems, there is always a single sign-on, your Active Directory, you log on, your passwords, validated and so forth, right? With IoT, when, you cannot do that with sensors, you cannot do that with oil rigs and so forth, right? So there is it's a brand new, it's called a TSL, Transportation Security Layer, which actually that is the governing protocol that's implemented by all the cloud providers, the major cloud providers, that actually send data from a device to the cloud. And when I say device, right, I want to qualify something. So in the world of IoT, there are three silos. One is the actual cloud, which is Amazon, Azure, Rackspace. That's basically where you aggregate the data and you do processing. And then the second one is what they call field. So when you look at the oil and natural gas industries, right? So let's say, the oil rigs could be inland or offshore. So when they are inland, let's say, the district of, let's say a place like Midland, Odessa, in Texas, Midland. So there are 100 oil rigs in that particular district. All of them don't send the data directly to the cloud. So there is a regional hub, which basically says for this zip code within a 25-mile radius, I'm going to aggregate data, and I'm going to actually filter the data that I want to send. So when the field hub gets the data, right, there are standards called the X59, and once it says, okay, I trust that the data that's coming to me from the individual rigs are good, there is a digital signature, a digital, thumbprint that matches what I want out of this device, I'm good. And then there is a next level of authentication between the field and the cloud itself. Okay, the cloud is going to say Azure or AWS is going to say, I'm getting data, 3 bytes of data or 4 gigabytes of data from Austin area. I want to make sure that my digital signature that I have authenticated matches with the digital signature of the feed coming from the field hub. So it's multi-level security, and Microsoft Azure has a protocol called X509, I believe. So these are all, unlike the older TCP/IPs and the HTTPS protocol, which was ubiquitous, these are protocols purpose-built for IoT-type use cases, dealing with device data.
I feel a lot better now. Thank you for explaining that. So we're going to open it up to the audience. We've only got a few minutes. We started late.
Sorry.
So we've got a few minutes left. So I'd like to spend the next 5 minutes. Okay. We'd like to spend some time with the audience. And in case someone has a low voice, I can get Harish to take that mic right there.
You want this one?
Yeah, let me set it up for them.
Yeah, it's on green light.
Put that to the edge there. All right, let's start in the back.
Talk more about the protocol. How mature is the protocol in the IoT in terms of, is it industry-specific protocols? Is it just, it's like global protocols? Where's the maturity on that?
The maturity, right? So when we talk, I would say it's very mature, but I have to caveat it with 2 things. So when you talk about the actual communications, right now the IoT industry is dominated by the 3 big clouds. And we think going forward, right, it's going to be Google. Most of the IoT use cases is going to be on the cloud, Google, Amazon, or Azure. So Amazon has something called, it's basically a 4-letter, an AMQP. I might be a little off on my abbreviations. So the protocols themselves are very specific to the cloud. So that is the AMQP is the Microsoft Azure proprietary protocol for internet data. And Amazon, MQTT, actually that's what Amazon is. So there is no, unlike HTTPS, right, which was cloud agnostic, this one is still proprietary to whatever cloud you chose.
Yeah,
All right.
that's the issue.
I do have a question
Yeah,
now.
the mic. So let's go next.
How about talent? And this is probably for you, Giovanna. It's very hard to find
It's
the right talent, right?
Very hard to find because the talent has to change and people are changing. The whole millennial sort of culture is a little bit different than the way we worked and thought things through. But we're doing some innovative things. Like now, we're going to put 3D printers on every engineer's desk because using a 3D printer and fabricating that way is different than using traditional manufacturing means. So you've got to kind of think outside the box and be much more creative. First of all, to retain the talent, right? But yeah, talent's difficult right now. We're always looking. So, but yeah, we've got to do innovative things and put collaboration tools in place, give them new technologies to work. We find that people work better in teams, right? So you'll see a bunch of guys around, guys and girls around a table problem solving, and so we love that. And actually the Blue Sky Center is designed to facilitate sort of teams problem solving. So that's kind of why we're doing it.
And how about, and the next question will be, for example, for your customers that are asking you advice, like,
Yeah.
how can I use this data, right?
Yes.
How
Partners.
are you providing?
Yep, so we have a consulting service called Radius, and they do design work, and they do strategy work, they do systems engineering and systems integration work, so we have an arm. Yeah.
The same on the data science. We're starting to see more data developers, data scientists coming in. Are you starting to see an upward trend for people who can take this data and turn it into something we can use?
Absolutely. So, like 10 years ago, right, you needed to be a programmer or you needed to be a computer scientist to do what we call business intelligence. Today, the reason for that was, the capacity of the computers and all that was fairly limited, right? Today, you can gather data to zettabyte scale, as you said. If you can think it, if a data scientist can think of any question to ask the system, there are algorithms and data scientists that know how to ask it. They can basically, so essentially, right, data science turns a business problem into a mathematical problem, right? ask a question, I'll find a mathematical algorithm to answer that question. And here is basically where my data is. So yeah, absolutely. The data sciences, I think in the next 5 to 6 years, this is going to be, I'm a little biased here, but I think this is going to be the most lucrative and the sexiest field in the
Oh, it is
world.
already.
Yeah.
I was reading an article, and there's one university that started a degree program just on data science. So, yeah, it's $250,000 on average for a data scientist salary, depending on what side of the world you're on or what coast you're on. But yeah, that's probably going to be I would say that's the career of the future.
Yeah, and we've seen the last year Rackspace hire an incredible amount of talent. A lot of AWS certified professionals, Azure certified professionals, also data scientists,
Yeah.
data developers, some of the hottest talent in the Central Texas region. How are y'all doing that?
We are actually, we are truly global when it comes to recruiting, right? So we don't believe in borders. So, if I find the smartest data scientist in Atlanta, Georgia, just because we have an office in Texas doesn't mean he or she has to relocate. And likewise, if you find the best data scientist in Poland, why not? I mean, the connectivity, since we are in the business of, IT connectivity and cloud computing, we make sure that we extend the same thing to the employees as well.
Yeah, the best you can find globally versus the best you can find with 25 miles around the castle.
Absolutely, and I think the whole industry, Brent, is if you look at most of the audience, right? I think the workforce is getting very global, truly becoming
Very much.
borderless.
So I think
That's
we have no
right.
time for one more question. Go ahead.
Yeah, it seems like we have oceans of data and teaspoons of knowledge. Most of the data there, we talk about zettabytes of data and maybe hundreds of zettabytes soon. Most of that, I think, is noise. And if you look back at even manufacturing, you talked about instrumentation manufacturing, people have been doing that for many decades. They learned early on that if you can process the data to find those novel events that you need to pay attention to
Exactly.
further down the stack, that you're better off from using your precious processing resources for the things that are important. So my question to you is, do you see any trends whatsoever of pushing some of that novelty filtering further and further down the stack to the Internet of Things, so you don't just gather data that's useless?
That's a brilliant point, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. So what happens is so the Internet of Things has two silos from this perspective, from your question's perspective, right? There is something called the edge, and then there is something called the hub. Hub is basically, the edge sort of acts as a filter. So going back to my oil and the gas rig example, right? As you said, 99% of the data in any big data platform is garbage. But unfortunately, you have to parse through the 100% of the data to find out which 1% is useful. So when you're talking about failure statistics, right? What is the rated lifetime of an iPhone? I cannot just do my testing on this one phone. I need samples from 100,000 other devices for me to say, when this iPhone operates at a temperature greater than 120 degrees, it's going to break. So even though the data itself, right, you're not wasting, you're right, you're wasting the compute capacity of all of these machines, but the data is needed for you to build self-learning statistical models, right? But that said, what is actually happening is, instead of sending every byte of data to the central hub, this concept of edge technology basically separates the wheat from the chaff at the edge itself. So out of the 1 billion, let's say out of 100 gigabytes of data that get generated by a rig in every hour, only 1 gigabyte, all of the data is already summarized, all of the statistics and the medians and the means are done. So only 1 gigabyte actually makes it into the hub.
Yeah. And what we're seeing too is some of the processing is done right at the edge, right? With the machine to machine. So if there's a business rule that's met or something, condition that's met, okay, do this process, right? So we're seeing that even things don't need to go back to a cloud or a hub, for that matter, and can be done between the two machines. So.
Yeah, I love the quote. Oceans of data and
Yeah, I got that quote too. That was a
Yeah.
really good one.
Teaspoons of
Because
knowledge.
you're exactly right. That's why I think you need business industry sort of vertical knowledge and data knowledge. It can't just be data knowledge. You got to know what you're looking for. You got to understand the industry. You got to understand your business. So it's a double major, let's put it that way.
And keep in mind, one person's garbage is another person's treasure. In 10 years, that garbage may be the most valuable thing in your business. So being able to hold on to it and get to it and retrieve it back.
Yeah.
Right? But someday we'll have the insights like the Cracker Jack box to be able to write to the prize and then enjoy it all. So hopefully you've found some value in this and it's going to help you in your business. Thank you so much for giving us a great, just a wonderful customer case study.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate Chandra and Rackspace for being here and all the good work y'all are doing.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, we're going to talk later.